Good Thursday afternoon, a little early here on a Thursday. Welcome to a football show. He is Zach Lyons. I am Braden Gall. We are fresh off the Titans practice field. We'll have lots to discuss about what took place on Thursday over at is it Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park now? I think
I
something
just
like
call
that.
it St. Thomas Sports Park. I ain't gonna learn an extra name to that.
Yeah, I think there's another.
STSP.
There's another one in there now. It's like ASTSP or something, but who cares? Practice was interesting on Thursday. We've got obviously a preseason game coming up on Saturday against the Chicago Bears. How are you supposed to watch that game? Zach has you covered. He's going to mansplain how to watch a preseason football game. So there you have it. That's coming up. I got to go to Vandy camp this week as well, so we might even have like a little quick Vandy nugget for you at the end of the show. I chatted with Chris Hubbard, new offensive lineman. As usual, Zach, I am obsessed with sort of integration into the culture and the first impressions of Mike Vrabel and his leadership and the psychology of who he is and why it works. And so we talked to Chris Hubbard about that. Also had some national folk saying some very positive things about the Titans, even while the offense wasn't particularly performing well on the field. But it was interesting. So a lot of stuff to do today on the show, brought to you by, of course, Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group. Sinkers Beverages, by the way, sponsoring Tomato Fest this weekend. We're going to be out there as well. 440 is going to have some space out there. So if you're in East and you want to come by, listen to some music, drink some Bloody Marys, hang out, Sinkers Beverages got you covered over there. They've got all kinds of Bloody Mary bars everywhere, great tomatoes, all kinds of food and art and music and fun. So bring the kids, come on out. Sinkers is a great supporter of the event. Of course, 440, a big supporter of the event. So go check it out. Kingston Group, of course, buildkg.com. We'll tell you more about both of those companies. Support local business here coming up in just a second. I think I got it all out of the way, Zach.
I think you did.
Whew. DeAndre. Okay, here's fun. Your fun start, D. Good to see you. DeAndre Hopkins did practice. He just snuck out there about halfway through after they did all the boring shit. DeAndre snuck out there for team drills. And he was out there. So he did sort of appear out of nowhere, a little bit like Kaiser Soze, and then he was gone, So I think that's it. All right, where do you want to start here? Let's start with the practice in general today, Zach, and you can kind of jump in and ask questions as you see fit. But it was not a good day for the offense, and I don't like. I think it is overplayed a lot in the media, the offense versus defense in a given practice or throughout a given week or throughout a given camp. I don't think that necessarily leads us to any one thing in the season. We know the defense is better than the offense for the Titans. So this is not some earth-shattering take here. But the commentary amongst most people following practice today was that this felt different. Now, let me lay out sort of how it happened, and I'll try to do this quickly for you, Zach. 7-on-7 drill. They do a lot of like individual stuff, right, to get started. They do a 7-on-7 drill. All three quarterbacks threw. Ryan Tannehill had 2 spectacular throws. Willis had 2 touchdown throws. Levis had a touchdown throw. They had 8 pass attempts. 5 of them were touchdowns. 1 was a defensive PI, 2 incompletions. Very positive session by the quarterbacks in red zone, 7-on-7. From that moment on, the defensive line, the Titans' best defensive group, got onto the field, nothing happened. Dropped passes, and one of them was a really nice play by Christian Fulton, by the way, who got up and deflected a pass that Treylon Burks was about to catch. But it wasn't really great defense. It was bad offense. And it was sacks. It was delays of game. It was drop passes. It was missed throws. It was a pick 6 the other way on the 5-yard line. Doesn't matter which quarterback. Doesn't matter which groups. It was just one of the worst offensive showings I've seen so far. There was one positive note at the end. We'll get to that, but that is the gist of what took place on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, PK is typically known for being negative, but this year he's been kind of a little bit more glass half full kind of when it comes to the offense. So today he put out a tweet that it's starting to get concerning pretty much for this offense and their performance. So that's, I think, when you need to start taking real note. I think the previous tweets or X's that you have been talking about, the previous remarks about winners and losers and this and that, and, well, so-and-so won today, or so-and-so looked good today, or they got the best of this guy. I think Vrabel is pretty good about, and he's pretty blunt about it. I don't know how many times, he has mentioned question from TD and saying, well, I'm glad that you thought that he graded out good, or glad that you thought that he won the day. You think you'd learn, but that's okay.
Yeah. We watched the tape.
I think what Vrabel, in saying that stuff, is really trying to bring home is that your guys' assessment of a win or a loss on a play is different than our assessment on a win or a loss in a drill or play or a whole practice. But
that's fair.
Today's a little bit different than previous days because today was just atrocious. You talk about delays of games, you talk about the penalties, the interceptions, the blown up pass blocking. Now that is not good. I think anybody simply could say that is not good. However, we don't know, and you guys do not know what they're being asked to do and why they're being asked to do it. Are they trying out new plays? Are they trying to cram in something differently that they may have not practiced? Are they trying to throw them curveballs and it's translating them? Getting all the warts, all the kinks out on certain plays because it is a new playbook. But at the end of the day, when you are a fan and you are seeing all this stuff, your reaction is compounded from the disaster that was today, is compounded by all the previous reports that just paint the offense in almost a negative light almost every day.
Well, and it's sometimes it's hard to not have the confirmation bias. Like, I am far more negative on the offensive line projection wise than maybe you are. For example, just between the two of us, it's funny. Like, Paul comes up to me and we just got done watching the one positive session. We'll get to that in a second because Willis did have a really nice session later on in the practice. But he comes up to me and he's like, dude, is this are you as concerned about what you've seen today as I am? And I'm like, because he's the same way as me and you, where it's like we don't really get caught up in like a win or a loss. Because like you said, like DBs and one-on-ones and pass blockers and one-on-ones. And it's like it's hard to know exactly what they're trying to accomplish with any given specific drill. But this was so obvious. And again, so obvious when it went right and so rare that he again, like I'm the same way. And he and I were both like, dude, this is concerning. Now, it doesn't mean that tomorrow's not going to be a great day. It doesn't mean that they're not going to fix some of these issues against Chicago. It doesn't mean they're not working through things. And it's not, let's not overreact here. But it is some confirmation bias for me personally. And I'll admit that, like, I have major concerns about the offensive line. I'm actually very bullish on the receiving core. There's things that I like. There's things that I don't like. You kind of mold and tweak those opinions as camp goes along. And this one certainly set the offensive line in particular back because it was all about the defensive line, which for the Titans is very, very good. Shocking. But I also thought it was interesting the way the practice ended today. And Vrabel says what he says, but they rarely finish early, and they finished about 15 minutes early today. It was a little wet, and nobody got hurt, and the offense looked like shit. And I think Vrabel said, fuck it, we're done. We're going to the locker room. We're going to flush this one. We're going to study it if we need to. And we're going to come back out tomorrow and sort of reset the clock. Even that's a very unusual thing for them to do, is to stop early like that. And it felt like they were just, the coaching staff was like, all right, this ain't it today. Like, sometimes it's not your day. Let's just call it and let's move on. And I actually think that's a totally fine thing and a smart thing to do for Vrabel. So it did feel different today. If you want, we can get to the positive because there was a really positive session for Willis.
I would like to drill down into why it looked bad. I mean, is it the offensive line? Is it maybe the lack of progression down the field because of drops? I mean, if you don't have a couple of drops, maybe your next play is a little bit better or the defense is guessing. And it seems like NWI had some drop issues today. Sounds like Colton Dow has had some major drop issues. Racy McMath, we know, has had major drop issues. So let's break it down from your vantage point. I mean,
Sure.
You don't know for sure, but from your vantage point, is it a mixture of the offensive line and skill players not following through on what they're supposed to do? Or is it the quarterbacks misreading stuff or mistiming? What is it, do you think?
I think the reason today was concerning was that it was all of the above. So you mentioned NWI. The one good throw from Tannehill in red zone late in practice hits NWI right in the hands in the back of the end zone. Should have been a catch. Should have been a touchdown. He normally catches that. He actually had a drop earlier in 7-on-7, which is also very unusual for him. There was some other, and some of this could be a wet football, to be fair, because there was more than one occasion where the ball popped up. But in almost every session, there was an interception. So there was good play from the defense as well. So let's give credit where credit is due. Like, again, Fulton made a great play one-on-one. It was very obvious that they were going to go to Treylon Burks in a red zone throw with Tannehill. They were one-on-one with tons of open space to the left, a short split. It was either going to be an out-breaking route or a fade. It turns out to be a fade. It's a well-thrown ball. It's a good route by Burks and a great play by Fulton. So that's one of those where you don't really have a problem. Like, it's not a big deal. But Will Levis had a delay of game after going right down the field, getting into the red zone, delay of game on like after an incompletion. So the clock's not running. Like, you can't have a delay of game on an incompletion in a 30-second drill. So it's the quarterback not doing the job. It's the receivers not doing the job. The offensive line was not blocking particularly well. There was a lot of times where you'd hear the whistle before the pass, which is them cueing that it was a sack, right? They let the play kind of play out. They want you to make the throw, but they'll like say up sack or whatever, and they'll do that. And so it was kind of everything. Both tackles are concerned. Today. Both tackles were concerned today. The pass rush is very good. The receivers didn't catch the ball. The quarterbacks didn't make good throws and good reads. It was a combination of everything. And I think that's why Vrabel just like punted at the end. He was like, I'm fucking flushing this one, dude.
Does that make you think that they're running stuff that they're not used to, or new stuff on offense, or asking him to do things differently than previous weeks to try to catch, to work out kinks? Because all that to unfold at once, it's just very odd.
Yeah. So here's an example. They were doing a like a 6-second. They did a lot of like situational stuff today, which also might be part of this, right? They did a 6-second situation where they're like on the 45 and they've got to get it 12, 15 yards and they have 6 seconds to do it, but they don't have any timeouts, right? So it's clear they're working on some gadget stuff to like get out of bounds quickly in that situation, right? You need 12 yards to put yourself in field goal range, but you got to get out of bounds because you can't be tackled in bounds, right? Just hypothetically. Some interesting, fun, cool stuff that they were doing, right? Here's a little out route, and we're going to flea flicker this, and we're going to get out of bounds, and it was fun. It was fun stuff to watch. But they ran it the second time with the second group, and Reggie Roberson catches the ball and turns and just runs upfield and like finishes the drill like he's going all the way to the end zone. And Vrabel's like, Roby, 6 motherfucking seconds. And there's like kids right there. There's like kids on the sideline because there's fans out there. And he's like, Roby, 6 fucking seconds. You got to get out of bounds, man. You got to get out. It felt like a mental lapse day to some degree. And that to me is actually would be the best possible news to come out of this, which is just like, look, sometimes you have a bad day. And if you're going to have a bad day, you flushed it. You move on, you take notes of it if you need to, and you get to the next day. They're going to be back out there on Friday practicing, and I assume a much better practice. I assume. So it doesn't change. Like, Tannehill made some really good throws that were like really good throws and got some drops. Willis made a couple really good throws. The defense made some really good plays, which I think is a positive in all of that. So I think we can overreact a little bit as we've spent the first 14 minutes talking about it. But it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very interesting, that it's just very interesting that it just really was bad today. Like, this was the first day that I felt like when I'm reading the tweets, I'm like, okay, this was a bad day.
Yeah, it was bad.
Makes me think that it's either just a one-off and it's just one of those days where it's really bad and nothing goes right, which happens on Sundays. There's various Sundays where just nothing goes in your favor, or they were trying something new, or maybe a little bit of both.
So I'd like to get your thoughts on this then, and I'll bring in the Willis late session here. So they go 2-minute at the end, which is really more like a 45-second drill, honestly. They put it basically on like their own 40, and they go, all right, you got 45 seconds. And Tannehill's group doesn't really do a whole lot. They kind of get near field goal range, and I think they didn't actually kick anything in this situation. Maybe they were doing it because they needed to score touchdown. Maybe that's what the difference in the drill was. It was yesterday or Tuesday was a field goal attempt needed. Today it was a touchdown needed, and that could be situationally how they're adjusting it. But Willis gets up there with the second team. Great little 10, 12-yard throw to Mason Kinsey to get the drive started. Clock's running. The next play is like a 50-yard bomb where Chris Moore is like 8 yards behind the defender. The scheme did the job, and Willis read it perfectly, timed it up, threw it. Great deep shot. He's tackled on like the 5. They run up, they throw an incompletion, and then the next play they throw a touchdown to Josh Wiley. It was a very well-executed drive. Very nice throws, in control from Malik Willis. So I don't want to sit here and say, like, well, it was just a terrible day by everybody, because that was one of the best sessions that Malik Willis has had the entire camp. It was the best I think I've seen him look. He also made a couple of good throws in red zone on 7-on-7 earlier. So I don't think it was all bad. I think it was one of Willis's better days, ironically. But Levis gets up and does it. And he hits, I got it right here. Who does he hit? He hits Jonathan Ward, Racey McMath, Kiaris Jackson, bang, bang, bang. They're down into the 20. Incomplete pass, but it's a throwaway, so it was the right decision. So, again, to your point, grading that play was a positive, even though it was an incompletion. But that next snap is a delay of game. You can't be incomplete pass, delay of game in a 30-second situation. Racey McMath then makes another great catch. Then it's a sack, and the game's over. So they had no momentum. There was no like good play finish. The only one was Malik Willis, really. So I don't know if that changes your perception of the overall evaluation of the day, or you know, I don't know, honestly.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it changes my mind. It makes me feel a little bit better about Malik Willis being, there, getting better, but it doesn't really overall. I don't really care too much. Regular season implications are for first string.
Yep.
Yeah, if Malik Willis and Will Levis have to play, you're glad that maybe Malik Willis today put something good on tape. But, for me, it's just like, good for him.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was talking with PK about this. Like Tannehill made, again, it wasn't a good day of practice, but in that first 7-on-7, Tannehill made 2 like bona fide badass throws into the end zone for touchdowns. And I look at Paul and I was like, man, that's one of the best throws I've seen all camp. And he was like, yeah. And it's because nobody talks about Tannehill, right? Because it's not interesting. Like, he's the starter. He's here. He's not a national spotlight guy. The national media doesn't care about him. Titans fans are sort of more obsessed with Willis and Levis. Like, he's like less interesting because there's no drama there. He's just the starter and he looks good. You know what I mean? So he doesn't get the coverage when he does do something well, which he's done a lot of this camp so far. So,
yeah, I mean, he has had a lot of good throws and all that kind of stuff. So it's just very interesting, the level of concern coming out.
All right, we'll talk about how to let's get to some positive stuff here. How to watch the Bears game. We'll get to that. A quick camp update from Vandy. I got to go out to that practice. Man, that's different. And we'll hear from Chris Hubbard here coming up in just a second. But I was talking with a couple of national folks who are in town. They do these rounds, right, where they go through and they go to like a bunch of different camps, and some really interesting commentary, observation about Chig. Like, man, that guy is built like a brick shit house. I was like, yeah, welcome to Nashville. And some comments about Treylon and DeAndre being a difference maker. But what was really interesting was sort of the perception that this individual brought about Mike Vrabel. And I think the phrase he used was he gets lost in Nashville. Like, in the NFL conversation, Mike Vrabel is lost in Nashville. That's not new information to anybody. But this guy then goes, I think this is going to be a pretty good team. I think they're underrated. And I was like, I think they can win the division. He goes, yeah, I agree. So I think, to your point, and you've made this point a lot, I think there are a lot of smart, good, intelligent football minds out there that know exactly how good Mike Vrabel is. I think just because Skip Bayless doesn't want to argue about Mike Vrabel because it's not good television, I think people sometimes get offended that's a TV decision, not a football decision. And I think good football people know how good Mike Vrabel is and that this team could be sneaky good.
Yeah. I think it is interesting. It's like, basically you're essentially saying sort of what Delaney Walker said a few years ago when he trashed that I'd be in the Hall of Fame if I was not true,
something
of intensity type, which is inherently false.
Right.
But But Kevin Byard has alluded to it. If I was on the Dallas Cowboys, I'd have a couple of all pros. I don't know. Maybe you need to have some all pro quality seasons. I doubt you would have the same good seasons against the talent that the AFC East provides on tight ends and stuff. But
doesn't he
that's
have an
neither
all
here-
pro? Doesn't he have an all pro season here?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
But I mean, he said he would have multiple. Hence
Mm.
the word usage, all pros and multiple earlier.
Well, no,
So-
I fucking understood you. I'm just saying, like, he seems to be nitpicking. I'm not nitpicking you.
Yeah,
I'm
but he's
nitpicking him.
He's nitpicking because of the market, which is ridiculous. Because if Nashville is such an easy market to play in and under the radar market to play in and all this stuff, you should have better seasons. I think Kevin Byard has had some really great seasons, but he has not had seasons where he has put together multiple all-pro worthy seasons that he would suddenly get over in Dallas playing against better competition when it comes to your tight ends and your wide receivers. But it is the perception of the players, and now you're getting the perception of it and hearing of it from people who look at it from a national perspective as well. I think Mike Vrabel gets a fair amount of respect across the national world of football. To me, he's typically in the top 10 or the top 5 quarter, and everybody lauds pretty much who he is, what he does. I think he's in the right market, and maybe he would be a quote unquote Sean McVay superstar if he was in LA. But really, I mean, is anybody really even talking about Sean McVay anymore? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
So yeah, I know the example we used, and by the way, Vintage says, is Hopkins okay in practicing today? Yes, he did sneak out middle of practice and practice through the team drills. They didn't throw him much, and they did it during like screen practices, so he wasn't running like the full go. And they were in shells today, by the way, so there wasn't any like full tackling. There wasn't. They had shoulder pads and shorts on. But I think so. The market we used was New York, and basically he said, "Man, can you imagine if he was the head coach of the Jets?" And I said, "Well, him and Dayball could switch, and Dayball kind of fits more Nashville vibe." But then I started thinking about it, and I'm going, Vrabel would be a star if he was the head coach of the Giants of the Jets in sort of the Belichickian talk show host kind of way. But I think his personality, because he doesn't take any shit and he doesn't want to put up with anybody and he doesn't want to, like, it's his way or the highway. I think that plays better in Nashville. I think he would be in way more confrontations if he was in New York, but I think his star would be brighter. I think he would be. I don't buy the Byard Delaney Walker. Delaney Walker's not a Hall of Famer. Great player, not a Hall of Famer. Doesn't matter where he played. I don't think you get voted all pro. All pro is a pretty smart football vote. I don't think that's voted on based on markets. You don't get more all pro votes because you play for the Packers or the Chiefs or whatever. I think what's interesting is the amount of coverage Mike Vrabel would get for the quality of work that he's doing, I think would be more appreciated and more talked about on a national scale because it would get more clicks if he was the Cowboys coach or the Giants coach or, whatever, Steelers coach. Like Mike Tomlin gets a lot of clicks because he's a Pittsburgh coach, not because he's Mike Tomlin,
Yeah.
Like, and I think I think Titans fans should just sort of understand that and then say, hell yeah, he's our guy.
Yeah.
Well,
I think, like I said, the right people in the world, you respect them. I think a lot of other fans probably do respect him. If you're basing it off clicks, I don't know if this is I don't know if that's really the right metric to use for head coaches and stuff. Because if we're talking about respect and talking about where they rank among the national group, to me, it feels like you got that respect everywhere you're looking. I mean, we're talking about a coach of the year. We're talking about a top 5, top 9 coach. So would he be? I feel like Mike Vrabel is in superstar status. Like I don't see the reason that he's not, because don't you think Mike Vrabel's a more popular coach than Brian Daboll or Robert Saleh? And I don't want to use clicks as the metrics. I'm talking about what the people think.
Well, but that's different
matters.
than no. I agree with you. I think he is extremely well respected in the places that you need to be respected.
Yeah, because I feel like the clicks thing is kind of skewed because obviously New York football fandom is so much bigger anyway. Sure. So that kind of skews everything. That's not a real good quality metric, I feel like.
No, it's not, but it is what you see in your day-to-day interaction with media. Like if you turn on the debate shows or open up an app or watch Sports Center, or like, those decisions are driven by audience engagement. They're not driven by who's the best football
Yeah, but
psychological
they're also
leader.
driven
Like,
by sound bites. And if Mike Vrabel's not giving you sound bites, I mean, Robert Saleh is getting sound bites because, Sean Payton said shit about him. And then you don't really hear anything about Brian Daboll in the news. So the New York market thing, I don't know if that really matters. You don't really see Brian Daboll. It's more about Daniel Jones, right?
well,
It's more about the interesting, terrible, or average players making a journey than it is about, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, no. So
if
I
you're
think,
talking coaches,
well, and that's why I mentioned, he said the Jets, and then I said to him, I think if you switch Dayball is more Nashville-ish from a personality standpoint. Vrabel's more New York-ish from a personality standpoint, which means they might actually be that the opposite might be true, that they need to be in opposite places for it to work. I think Brian Daboll earned himself so much goodwill because he flipped a switch and made Daniel Jones, better. That I think people are like, oh, he's in the honeymoon phase, I think, still. But if you were to write a story, is Mike Vrabel on the hot seat on ESPN.com, or is Brian Daboll on the hot seat? I guarantee you which one will get significantly more traffic.
yeah, and that's
so,
just because of New York, not because
right,
of the coach.
right. But that also, yes, but that dictates media coverage decisions. And I don't like it. I don't like it, but it is
Yeah,
it's the reality.
You know what? I want to retire this topic. Because we just say the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I just don't give a shit about the coverage of the national media for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, the story to me is a guy that I have a huge amount of respect for, who is a very smart football mind, looked at me and said, I think this team is going to be better than people think, and Vrabel is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
like that's what I care about, is that part of the story.
Yeah,
so.
that's a great part of the story to care about, because that's also something that we've been repeating and saying this whole time as well. That
right.
People are underestimating when making record predictions. I will even go drill down and say I think people in the local media are still underestimating Mike Vrabel. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, where I said I think everybody needs to take a reset, take a step back, and realize that Mike Vrabel's still this fucking head coach.
Yeah, yes, he is. Yes, he is. All right, so I wanted to get an example. I mean, this kind of lined up. I didn't do it intentionally, but I got a chance to chat with Chris Hubbard, the new right tackle for this team, after practice, and I wanted to know like what he thought about Vrabel. So you're going to hear that in just a second. I want to tell you guys, of course, about Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group first before we do that. Sinkers Beverages, of course, in East Nashville, your reigning #1 liquor store in the city of Nashville. Football show is brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. Go vote Best of Nashville. If you would like to include us, a football show, Stacking the Inbox, 440 Sports, any of this stuff you'd like to include in your votes for Best of, please, by all means, go do that. Vote for Zach Lyons for greatest personality in the history of the world. If you'd like to do that, I think you should absolutely go vote. Go write him in. Go write any of us in. That's great. We'll take it. But go vote for Sinkers because they're the defending champs. Also join the in crowd. I know a lot of you guys have joined the in crowd. It's a really good way to get like early access to allocations if you're a bourbon fan. Really great wine selection, huge beer cooler, all kinds of cool stuff. So check out Sinkers. Of course, you can also Uber Eats Sinkers. So just search Sinkers Beverages on Uber Eats, and they'll deliver the booze directly to your house.
They'll drive so you can drink.
There you go, directly. I'm not sure what I was saying there. And then, of course, the Kingston Group, just Nashville's award-winning, locally owned, custom home and remodeling firm. Have a conversation, talk about your house. They'll help you, steer you in the right direction where you need to go. And please just remember that name. Before you do anything, before you do a renovation, before you make a big decision, if you're sitting down to talk about something about your house, just remember the name, the Kingston Group. They will help shepherd you through that process no matter what. So just remember the name, the Kingston Group. Okay, so Mike Vrabel, very well respected, very loved. I am fascinated with what makes him so good at being a teacher, at being a leader. I'm fascinated by the psychology of sports. I think we've gotten a lot smarter about this stuff, but almost every time I talk to a new player that comes into the Titans organization with fresh eyes, I want to know what they see that's different, that makes Mike Vrabel. And I asked Chris Hubbard that exact question after practice today.
Man, straightforward, man. Love that about him, man. I love the fact that he's a player's coach, man, and being able to put us in the right position, showing us, teaching us, learning different things that what he sees, and him telling us how to do them. And it's amazing to have a coach like that, man, to be able to share information and put us in the best position to win, man. And that's what it's all about.
Is it about personal relationship too? Like, have you had time to experience that where he comes to you one-on-one and builds a relationship so that you guys have that trust?
Yes, man. I've had I have talked to him, man, just inside the the locker room or in the caf, and just talking to him and just building that trust, man, building that chemistry. And that's what it's about, man. I love to be able to get with the coaches and being able to know what they know and to think how they think, and even just joke around too, man, because we're all just humans too. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, man, we'd like to have a little fun here and there, but at the end of the day, it's work. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about getting better.
There you go, Chris Hubbard. Really thoughtful answers too to all the other reporters' questions as well. Like he's an interesting guy. He also talked a lot to some other folks about how important he knows, like, if this offensive line can come together, they're sort of the group that will decide how far this team goes. So that was pretty open self-awareness from Chris Hubbard, I thought. And
yeah,
respect for Mike Vrabel, of course.
Yeah, it's just more of the same. What you're hearing now to Chicago, interestingly enough, is that Chicago writers and sources and fans, here's what's going down up with Nate Davis, by the way, if you don't know. So the reason I want to go back to Nate Davis is because we're talking about the personality of Mike Vrabel, the people that he's called out, and there are people that respond and people that don't respond. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's apparently going well for Nate Davis, Chicago. There's the people are asking if there was a lack of practice issue in Tennessee. Back in pretty much, there's people saying that he was disinterested last year, ultimately lazy as a prep guy leading up to games, et cetera, with Tennessee is what this guy is hearing. And he goes, wasn't sure if it was a well-known thing or not. Dude didn't show up to OTAs. Nate Davis didn't even show up to OTAs for a new team. And as soon as the pads went on in practice, he hasn't practiced once. But when they're in shells in training camp, he's out there. So all that to say that if you buy into what Mike Vrabel has done this offseason, is gotten rid or let people go that weren't 100% buying in. And he's bringing in people because he has control now. How much control? We don't know. In personnel decisions. And so now he can actually bring in people that him and Rand Carthon think that actually love football, and not what John Robinson thinks people that love football. And Chris Hubbard, whether he's good or bad, I don't think he's going to be that great, but that is what it is.
But he cares a lot.
But he cares.
Yeah.
And he wants to play for Mike Vrabel. He wants to perform. And Mike Vrabel said it time and again, if you come in here and give us your all, we'll figure out how to do the rest.
I think we said this on the last episode, sort of things that we know. And one of the things that I felt compelled to talk about was the defensive newcomers, the free agents that they brought in, that they hand selected to sort of say, these are the three guys we want to fill holes. Azeez Al-Shaair fits all of those things that you just said to a T. Had a nice interception today, by the way, dropping in coverage, and he gets better like all the time. And Sean Murphy-Bunting is another one who's vocal leader. And then of course, Arden Key has become like the face of the defensive line. Like it should not be a surprise that the three defensive free agents that they decided, him and Rand decided to bring in, have become sort of, these, like, I don't want to call them like Energizer bunnies, but like they're clearly the work ethic and the leadership and all that stuff is there. Like it's just obvious. Like it's harder to tell with Brunskill for, because it's just a guard. It's just harder to tell. But like he's so matter of fact also that it's like, oh, he's already just a starting right guard. He's just. Yeah, there you go.
Here's a tweet, or here's an X I just re-X'd on or reposted on X. This is from @Ross Reed. The Bears need to bring in another interior offensive lineman soon. All Nate Davis does is walk around in a jersey collecting checks like rappers in 2002.
Yikes, dude. That is bad stuff, man.
Hey, listen, this should let you know this is a prime example of how Mike Vrabel gets the most out of anybody, and he gets more out of people who really care. Because you go to a different head coach, and here's Matt Eberfluss, who doesn't have really good control over his veterans, and here you go. Nate Davis just kind of walking. He's turning into like Jadeveon Clowney pretty much. I mean, like he is going down a road that is going to make, by the way, this is going to make, to bring it back to me for a second, this is going to make Mike look so stupid when Daniel Brunskill is so much better than Nate Davis, because all he had to do was actually practice and build chemistry with his offensive line, because Nate Davis isn't even doing that. He's going to get out there week 1 if he's allowed to play, and they're going to look like an utter disaster. It's going to make me look such like a fucking genius. I can't wait.
Well, I think based on the cost of Brunskill versus Davis, it's not like, even before the practice started, it wasn't even close. Like one guy's a quarter of the cost.
Yeah, but he thinks that Nate Davis is levels above Brunskill,
right.
where me and you, we have been that we think it's almost like a 1-for-1 swap.
Well, it's actually what you're saying though. Like if Nate Davis did two things, tried really hard at football and didn't get hurt, he would be levels above Daniel Brunskill.
He would be like a freaking all-pro, and he'd probably still be on this team. Like that's the key. That is why they let him walk.
Yes, I agree. Now, it's not the same for everybody that they let walk. Like, Jayon Brown and David Long didn't have effort problems. They had other problems, right? It was small and injured and didn't fit and asking for too much this. And it wasn't about effort for David Long, in my opinion. But I agree with you. We shall see. Now, I want to ask you then about one player who's had I think a pretty good camp. And he had a pretty good practice day today, and he's had some really good plays throughout. I mean, Fulton has been called out many times by Vrabel in terms of the soft tissue stuff. He had the whole offseason saga, if you want to call it that, whatever. Where are you on Christian Fulton? He's clearly motivated by a new contract. He's been playing well. He's an important piece. Where are you with that part of the evaluation of Nate Davis? Where are you with him and Fulton?
Well, I mean, it seems that instead of going the opposite direction and blaming everybody else around him like David Long did and saying it wasn't true, Christian Fulton accepted the constructive criticism. He got the hints, he got the warnings, he got the message, and ran with it. And look, I was very skeptical of his training regimen down in Miami away from the team, but it's working, and listen, he could be just using it as motivation. He gets a paycheck next year or a big contract next year, and it goes down the drain. But it seems to me that the thing about Christian Fulton, when he was classified as the guy that can't stay healthy, the 8-4 guy lumped in that statement, was like, that was not the Christian Fulton that was at LSU. That was not the Christian Fulton that has done interviews and his first rookie year. That was not that Christian Fulton. And so it was so weird to hear that. Like, I'm not surprised by Nate Davis in the slightest.
Right.
David Long really was an 8-4 guy. He was just the injury guy. But like the Fulton aspect of it was really surprising. And it looks like to me that Christian Fulton's like, I am not that guy. I am this guy, and I'm proving it, and I'm glad. That's only good for the Titans.
Right. I agree with that.
That's a huge advantage for the Tennessee Titans if Christian Fulton gets back down to the Fulton County lockup that he was in 2021.
And if he is, he still might not be. He might be too expensive for the Titans to bring back. Who knows? They have a lot of money though, so we shall see. I think what's good. I think a perfect scenario would be like a really good, high quality year, but not elite. And so therefore you get him at like a solid price, and you can get him locked up for 3 or 4 years, but you know that you're going to get the same Fulton for the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, that's the key, is knowing once you pay him that you get the same guy as the motivated guy in camp, right? Like, because he's pissed off for greatness this year.
And that's great. It's got to carry on into the season, and I think it will, because this defense just seems like he's pissed off for greatness. And so for me, it's just like, I'm here for it. And then I said numerous times that this may be the guy that proves me wrong, that he
Can't be right every time.
back. He can't be right every time. I mean, even Goldberg went 90-1 or something like that, wherever he was. So, you just can't win them all.
Yeah, every now and then. All right, go to Sinkers, of course, Kingston Group, support local businesses. If you want to come out to Tomato Fest this Saturday, by the way, we're going to be there. I got the wife and kids are going to be there. We've never missed one. It's one of our favorite days. There's going to be drinking, and Sinkers is going to help us with that drinking. So come on out. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's always great music. It's Friday night, and then Saturday. We'll be there Saturday. We're going to be handing out some fun stuff for you guys on Saturday. I recommend you coming by. That's all. Come on by on Saturday. Come find us. I'll be tweeting out the location at Braden Gall. So I'm never going to not call it Twitter. So even if you think that's wrong. Okay, let's get into how to watch this game with the Bears, because we have an actual football game sort of coming up this weekend. I've got some individual things that I'm really looking forward to, but I want you to tell everybody, go ahead and mansplain to all of us, how should the Titans fans be watching preseason game number 1 with the Bears this weekend?
Well, it's really just about the quarterbacks, how you should watch the quarterbacks. And it really depends on what category you fall into. Are you just watching for a good time, or are you watching to see how 2 players have improved and what your future at quarterback looks like? Because if you're looking at just having a good time, just have a good time. Just sit back, watch it. Your team wins, your team wins, your team loses, your team loses. But if you're coming at it from analytics, analysis, future expectations, blah, 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 whatever you want to throw in there, situation, then you need to be looking at these quarterbacks in a vacuum. What are they doing pre-snap? What are they doing when they get up to the line? How many delay of game penalties are they getting because someone's not getting set? Are they being accurate? Right? Are they being accurate? Do they put touch on the ball? And I kind of said this yesterday, is like in a preseason game, I'm sure the team wants to see touch on the ball. It's kind of like when Malik Willis ran when he wasn't supposed to run and they yanked him. I'm sure that if they start like throwing fastballs over and over and over, they're probably going to get pulled, right, or get in trouble. But as a person watching the game, a preseason game on a Saturday,
sling it, baby.
I just love sling it. I mean, just go. I don't care. But they want touch on the ball.
Right.
It's not really as much about. It's kind of hard to explain. It's not really about who gets the most yards, who has the best yards per attempt, who is the most efficient quarterback. And that is what you need to be looking at, because right now, you've said that Will Levis is probably right there with Malik Willis, if not already better, from a standpoint of where he was last year. But also, you think they're kind of close this year. You think that is pretty much Will Levis has already won the competition.
There's still
pretty much.
There's still some time, but yeah, I think they're even right now. And I think based on where Willis was, if you're doing the same time and location for each of them, like week 3 of their rookie camp, Levis is light years ahead of him. If we're just comparing them right now today, Willis had a better day today specifically, but I think Levis is. I think I'd give him a slight edge right now over Willis, but we're going to learn more. This, like you said, we got to watch all the stuff in the vacuum and really see how each of them handles all the different elements that are thrown at you as a quarterback in the NFL.
Right. And to me, it's like we finally have a true quarterback competition of 2 quarterbacks who should be NFL average backups at the very least, right? At the very least, they need to be NFL average backups. Because like last year's Logan Woodside, Malik Willis was awful. And then you had Logan Woodside and Trevor Siemian, and then you would have had Trevor Siemian, or then I think it was Deshaun Kaiser, Kevin Hogan,
Matt Barkley.
I mean, you've had all these guys come in, and they've been pitiful. But now you have 2 quarterbacks who should be at this point in their careers, because acceptable bottom tier 33rd, 34th quarterbacks in the NFL right now, right? Like, I mean, that's what you should have. So you should see a quality NFL quarterback performance in the preseason.
I think from a pure talent standpoint, Blaine Gabbert's the only one that I would put on the same platform as Levis and Willis. Those guys you all just rattled off. Woodside was in the league not because of talent. It was the opposite of that. He's in the league because of decision making, etc. Whatever. Like he overperformed because of his understanding. From a pure tool standpoint, Blaine Gabbert's the only one that's been a backup at Tennessee that's any good compared to from like a Levis Willis standpoint. Well, Levis and Willis are, from a tool standpoint, way ahead of everybody that's been a backup here, other than Blaine Gabbert. But Blaine Gabbert couldn't function when the lights came on. Like he just couldn't do it. So I agree. I think that's the great way to put it. Right now, today, at the very least, they should be quality NFL backups. Yeah. They're too talented not to be. And now Willis has started NFL games and gone through 2 camps. He should be capable of being a quality NFL backup at worst case scenario. So that's what you want to see on Saturday.
If you see hesitations in it, like use he or him for either Will Levis or Malik Willis and the stuff I'm about to say. If he goes out there and he fucks up the call, or he fucks up the huddle, or he gets delay of games, or if he's not accurate, if he's not on time with his passes, if he holds on to the ball too long, if he doesn't make quick, good, decisive, clear decisions, it doesn't matter who they're playing against. Those are things that he controls. So that's how you have to view it. The end result may be an interception because of rushed passing block, because of pass blocking, because your pass catchers ran the wrong route, or because it's just that good. But this is a simplified offense going up against a simplified defense. The basics of quarterbacking in the NFL that Malik Willis struggled with last year, both of these quarterbacks need to show that they can excel in those areas.
Yep. I completely agree. And I think so I've got a couple other things I really am interested, and I think it's all tied kind of specifically to one thing that could happen. And there's a lot of guys that are fighting for spots, right? That's the nature of this time of the year. And the thing that is a real story, in my opinion, this kind of goes to how to watch preseason games, is like the major fuck up. Like you may not win your way onto the roster against Chicago, but you might lose your way off of it. And this is the Julius Chestnut fumble situation, right? Wasn't he or was it Mekhi Sargent? Have we figured that out yet? Who's fumbled last year like twice?
I believe it was Mekhi Sargent.
And it's like you can't keep a guy that you can't trust to hold on to the football at running back. So, for example, Jonathan Ward's probably going to get some reps, a lot of them. Julius Chestnut probably going to get some reps. Tajay Spears going to get a lot of reps, potentially. Whoever it is, and I would say the same thing for Reggie Roberson. Like, you can't make the big mistake. You just got to go out there and be consistent. You got to go out there and be dependable, do your job, don't do shit that hurts the team. But if running backs are fumbling, if receivers are dropping passes, if it's a punt returner who drops a punt, if it's, bad personal foul penalty by a defensive player for a late hit, like you can't, because middle linebackers one I'm going to be watching very closely. I can't wait to see the linebackers on Saturday. So it's like, though, if you're looking at those position battles and you're looking at those players who are sort of fighting for roster spots, they're probably not going to do anything overtly positive that makes us all come on here on Monday and go, wow, that guy won a job. But you can bet you can lose your way off a roster in one preseason game. So it's the big screw up. Don't have the big screw up. And then you sort of start taking notes on guys that had those moments. And if you have those moments, like again, Racey McMath has caught a couple passes in practice today, but he's largely had too many moments all camp where it's too easy for Mike Vrabel and the staff to say, you're not going to make the team. Like you got to catch the football like in tough situations. So it's the don't screw it up kind of situation. I think for me is, again, Roberson's big. The third, fourth, fifth running backs are big, and the middle linebackers. Those are kind of the three that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, I think, on Saturday, those three positions.
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see how much NWI and Chris Moore play as well. When you have 12 wide receivers, I don't know, you got to get them all on the field. I mean, that, 4 of them don't really need to play, maybe 5, depending on Kyle Phillips or whatever like that. But, you don't have to play them all to be able to field a competent, pass catching group.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see the snap counts and everything that come away from this. How do certain people look? He did say some starters will play. No surprise. I believe Kevin Byard plays. Defined some, I guess you could say. The starting offensive line will likely be playing at least one series, and how much do they play? It is what it is. I'm very interested in Malik Willis and Will Levis. and the wide receiver 6. Like the wide receiver. That's what I am tuning in for. Everything else is probably a toss-up or throwaway. Like I really don't care. I'm all in on those two things.
And it's yeah, I'm with you on the backup quarterback, wide receiver 6, middle linebacker, offensive line. Like you can just keep going. Field goal kicker is going to be interesting. They had some fun today where they were trying 64-yarders intentionally, missing them to try to turn them into punts. You know, which is actually such a Vrabel thing. I love it. So there's a lot to watch, but like. Again, I think the way you win yourself onto the roster is to not have any mistakes for 3 straight games. Like if you can do your job every single play that you're out there for 3 straight games, whether it's 10 snaps or 30 snaps, and you get to the end of the preseason after 3 games and you haven't made any mistakes, you may not have like a huge game, you know, in a huge positive way, but you've never made any mistakes. That's how you win your way onto the team. It's avoiding the big mistakes is how you do it. So, all right. Anything else? All right, quickly here, going from Titans camp on Monday and Tuesday to Vanderbilt camp on Wednesday, back to Titans camp on Thursday. Obviously, it's NFL versus the worst roster basically in the SEC, and I've got a lot of positive things to say about Vanderbilt. But just for the folks out there that if you have one person in your life that wants to still have the discussion, like, oh, I bet you Georgia could beat the Rams, or I bet Georgia could beat the Texans, or, you know, best college team, worst NFL team. If you still have that person in your life, I'm just telling you right now, Racey McMath would be the best football player on Vanderbilt's roster by a country mile, and it'd be the only thing we talk about, and he is not going to make the Titans team. It's so insane to go from one to the next. It's just like who's the 9th running back on the roster? Like that guy would be the starter and an All-American for Vanderbilt.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because you talked about it and you say Vandy camp observations. The doors might be better at almost every position around AJ Swan on offense except running back and maybe tight end 1. The wide receiver core is much deeper, noticeably larger offensive line, defensive line, very physical practices, dinged up from 7, local kids flashed all day. So the wide receiver core is much deeper. But Racey McMath, who wasn't good in college, would still be the best one on the Vanderbilt team?
Yeah. And Will Shepard is the best receiver on the team who's got all SEC talent. Like he could be an all SEC receiver. He's pretty good. That doesn't translate to the NFL necessarily. It just doesn't sometimes. Racey, as his size and speed, would be 8 yards wide open on every play. Like he just would be wide open. I don't know if he catch any passes. But he'd be wide open and he would just dwarf everybody else. Like he dwarfs a lot of NFL people. Like that's how big and fast he is when you're standing next to him. But it is just, it's mostly just the stark contrast when you go from one to the next. People have this conversation. Oh, Georgia, Alabama, when they were great, they could compete with the Detroit Lions. Like, no, they can't. They would get their ass like destroyed. Like, that's because NFL teams have 53 NFL players and college teams have 4. That's the difference. Anyway, all those positives about Vandy, I think there's some reason for optimism. I do think the offense is better at every position other than running back. I think the receiving core is really fun and deep. A lot of local kids, a lot of 2 receivers there, I think, from Lipscomb and from NBA, I believe, that are having great camps, catching passes all over the place. I think that they're bigger along both lines of scrimmage. They beat Florida and Kentucky last year. I don't think they're going to challenge the best teams in the SEC, but I think they could be in a lot of games this year. And the most interesting thing to me about the Vanderbilt, their practices are more physical than anybody else in the SEC. I find that to be really interesting. They don't go portal. They don't tamper. They build and develop their guys because they kind of have to, but they hit more in practice than any other SEC team. And I think that's why they're a tough team. It's why they're tougher on defense than other teams. I'm not saying they're going to be great. I'm not picking them to make a bowl game, but I think they're going to be in a lot of football games. And that's fun if you're a Vandy fan. I think you should enjoy that.
There you go. Of course, they're going to be playing. Where are they playing? Their opening games.
Well, they actually play on the 26th. We're like 2 weeks away.
But
from
they've already said where they're going to play. I can't remember the school or the football field or whatever it's called. But they've already said where they were playing.
Oh, it's not. I thought it was at the stadium
No,
Or they're playing
gosh,
like one game
I
off.
can't find the X. I
obviously.
don't know where that X went, but someone shared it with me, and they were like playing at some school, and I cannot remember the name of the school.
So they are going to, because they're going to play a lot of the games are in like the Georgia game and the Auburn game, I believe, are in the current stadium. It's just like 8,000 seats smaller because the whole end zone's gone. But I don't know where the Vanderbilt game is specifically taking place.
And someone is like a My Precious School or something like that. It's like a weird Catholic school name or something. I just can't remember.
Weird. All right, I'll have to double check on that.
Yeah, and then maybe that X was wrong, but I just saw it.
I think there is one game this year where they're deciding to play somewhere else, but I think the other ones they're again it's about what 30.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Play. That's the joke that I saw. And
okay, so it was a joke. All right, good. I was like, I didn't think they were playing.
Well, he says that I say it's a joke because that can't be real, right? So I don't know, but that's what I saw. That's what I remember.
What's the nicest high school football stadium in Middle Tennessee? NBA, Ensworth?
I don't know. You're asking the completely wrong person. I don't give a shit about local high school football. I can probably name you like 5 Nashville high schools in the area.
Well, I'm just naming
I'm not some creeper going over to high school football games. Like
I'm just naming the richest ones with the most money to build facilities. Ensworth and NBA, I think, would probably be the 2 best stadium. Like they have field turf. By the way, did you see the images of the new stadium and the web? They got the website up, and
I'm not calling it the Ring of Fire. They can't push that on me. That's your nickname can't be longer than saying we're heading to Nissan.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work for me. Ring of Fire is not gonna work.
It's also like, is there too much cash, Johnny Cash? Can we do too much Johnny Cash in Nashville? I don't know if you can.
They didn't even do Johnny. I don't even know who the fuck covered that Ring of Fire song, but it was terrible. I would never listen to that rendition again. That cover was awful.
No, I agree. I'm just curious. It's like Nashville SC has done a pretty good job of like kind of subtly working Johnny Cash in. They got the Cash jersey and they got, but that kind of happened organically because the supporter section unveiled the banner, right, of Cash, and like it sort of happened on its own. It wasn't like decided by the team. I don't know. Ring of Fire, it does. I don't mind it. It's not. You could do a lot worse than quoting Johnny Cash to name your stadium, but I don't know. I don't like it being a single word that's just a brand either. Yeah. Like that's why I liked the Coliseum so much when it was Adelphia. Like, yeah. The Coliseum is a great name. It still should be Nissan Coliseum. You're the fucking Titans.
Right. I agree.
It should be Nissan Coliseum and you call it the Coliseum. It's not, this isn't rocket science.
Yep.
All right. We appreciate you guys joining us early. We appreciate Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group for supporting us. Go to stackingtheinbox.com, of course, as well. Obviously, again, we appreciate you guys for coming by early. Zach's got some personal stuff he's got to deal with. So we wish you the best of luck with all of that. Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group, Stacking the Inbox, football and other F words. Stoney, thank you for all the work you're doing for both of us. We do appreciate you. Otherwise, I think that's it. We will recap the preseason game coming up on Monday. So have a great weekend, everybody. For Zach Lyons, I am Braden Gall. We'll talk to you next week.